All right, KMS Wrap Up Show, October 20th, right? Yeah, October 20th. I just sent out the tweet. I didn't see it on my Apple podcast yet, but I'd waited long enough. I think it was like 20 minutes or whatever. So take your shots. Hopefully it's up there by the time you guys see this. So I didn't see it on mine, but everybody seems to be different. I see people tweet all the time. Theirs is up. So, all right, today's show, obviously, you got to talk about the Kmarko incident, not incident, but the interview on the Dave Portnoy show. So you guys all know the history by now between the show and Kmarko, who was then the editor of the Barstool blog. Since then, Coley Mick has taken over as Kmarko was demoted. So I think I said this on the show, watching that back, oh, I tweeted it as well. Visually versus audio, right? So I did visual live last night in the chat, seeing Justin say his name, which was funny. I actually, I'll get to that in a second, actually, but not about Justin, but about something else. So I was in there watching it live. Different feel, way more miserable, way more sad, way more dreary visually on YouTube than listening in, and I don't even think they did anything in post. I listened to the audio coming in the podcast form again, just to hear it again and all that stuff. It's still miserable. It's still dreary. It's still all those things, but there's a different feel visually seeing him there, especially the walk-off. That was just fucking bananas, the way that went down. I don't know. I don't know what's going on through his head there. What I was just alluding to was on the show, Kirk mentioned how everywhere he's getting killed. Clearly, we're seeing Minifan reaction. The chat, I've seen a lot of shit on Reddit. I've seen a lot of negative stuff toward Kmarko on Reddit. I don't know if that's Stoolies or if that's Minifans or whatever. In the actual chat, it seemed like 50-50. I don't know. Maybe I'll text Justin today to see if he got a feel. Not that it matters that much. It seemed like there is, when it comes to the Stoolies, there's a lot of, I don't know, like there's a lot of loyalty to kind of the top five, let's call them. And Kmarko's there. The only difference with Kmarko is like he then turned into a behind the scenes guy. I just feel like the only thing I can come up with is that as everybody else went into the content world, and even though Gaz didn't go into the content world, but he still was a part of it, and the social is still content in some way. I don't know, the arrogance of not being able to do that while having that power over the blog. I don't know, but either way, like to not do, let's take away like the not doing anything and not writing a blog, but to like not have a conversation with your boss, who you were there for like the earliest of early days with the company for 15 months. I said this on the show. I always thought that was almost like sarcastic, like Dave when he kind of was like, oh, that guy's been here for a cup of coffee. I thought it was like just lines in passing when he's like, oh, I haven't talked to him. I haven't talked to him in a year. I just figured still like casually you walk by somebody in the office. Maybe you don't have a full-fledged conversation, but you talk to the fucking person. No, this seemed like this was their first interaction. Basically, so I can't say, I clearly I can't say since the Zonker blog text, probably the Trista blog maybe, because I don't even know if they texted. I don't remember in the podcast, did they say they texted after the Deke Zucker tweets or hearing the show and the news with Coley and all that stuff? I don't remember, but it seemed, I guess the premise still stands. It felt like the first time they had a conversation in a year and a half, basically, at least. So it's wild to me that, you know, I don't see Dave. Dave's got enough going on. That's not just like kissing ass as a stoolie, as a fan, as an employee, as all this stuff. I don't see why an employee, especially one that was there so early, wouldn't do more to get in contact if there were an issue. So I heard him say that he waited outside the office and Dave was traveling. I mean, there's more ways to communicate with somebody than that. Hey, do you have a quick second? I didn't get to hear from you about that. What? Either way, I mean, Kmarko just came off so fucking beaten and broken, which clearly the whole thing is because of his own mistakes and then the fallout from everything with the show. I mean, Kirk should be happy that this is happening because the guy shows basically no remorse. Like if he owned that it was a mistake he wished never happened, but he didn't just like own it and be like, you know what? Yes, you're right. I don't like Kirk Minihane. I saw this blog. It never would be on Barstool in a typical world, but I said, fuck it. I don't know. It's very, very strange. Watching it was difficult's not the word. It was like this weird enjoyment, yet pity, yet and that's what you're going for in that moment, I guess, if you're him. So I don't know. I want to see the fallout from that. Want to see where that goes. I assume people at Barstool will talk about it. Obviously, Big Cat was on today's show talking about the dozen. He hadn't listened yet at that point. Maybe not. But he said he didn't listen. So we'll see if they react to it. Maybe the rundown touches it. I want to see if Stool Scenes touches it late in this week. So we'll see if there's any reaction today. And obviously, this week's schedule lines up where, hopefully they're reacting today and we can play it back tomorrow, so we don't have that extra day in between. So hopefully we'll see if things come up and we can talk about with Chris tomorrow. So Quantum Week Chris is in tomorrow, which is Thursday. I've reminded you each and every day. Monday, Wednesday, Thursday this week. No Friday show. Case related, I believe Kirk said. So that's the Kmarko news, and we'll continue to monitor kind of the fallout of what happens there. But we played all the sound clips and things like that, and it's tough. Even doing the show after, you kind of look back on those things, and you're just like, oh God, it's just, I don't know. That was my third go around listening to him, basically. Well, probably more, because then you're cutting the audio. So I don't know, it just beats you down of how fucking depressed he was. So I don't know. There's a lot of resources, I assume, that you can talk to, because it feels like he might need them, because that was fucking depressing as shit. So all right, other topics that we hit on. We played that Howard Stern audio. I was just kind of asking the question, and I guess I ask it all the time, and maybe it's an asshole thing of me and I should just give up. I totally understand the idea that Howard Stern is not the same Howard Stern. By the way, I'm not trying to have the same, what's that podcast that you do that DEC used to like? Howard Stern's not the same, and I didn't listen to him as much back then. I knew enough of him to be dangerous and knew the bits and stuff like that or whatever. But I don't know. I never have a problem with the guy giving his opinion and then defending it and calling the other side assholes. But my question was just kind of why is that necessarily different than what he used to do? I know that we don't necessarily maybe agree with all of his opinions as of late. And I think what Mike was trying to say in that is that he just doesn't believe, and maybe I'm wrong in this, so I don't want to put words in his mouth necessarily, but it seemed like they were alluding to the fact that they don't think Howard Stern is this fucking woke. They don't think it's this extreme. He's just doing it because that's the trendy thing in the world, to get the Jennifer Anistons of the world, the Reese Witherspoons or whatever, to go on the show. So I totally get that. If that's what they believe, I didn't listen enough to understand that. I just like to get I ask kind of the broader question, because I do sometimes, I turn him on and I'm like, he is unserious, so he can say shit. And podcasts, there's not a lot of podcasts that are fucking edgy, which is crazy to me, because you're clearly, you can say whatever the fuck you want. There's no FCC guidelines to podcasts. There's not a lot of podcasts that are as edgy as a Howard Stern serious show, obviously. So, and edgy's a weird word, but I can totally see if you're that into it. I know a few people who were diehards, just like Kirk was. So I totally get it, but it was just interesting to me. But he did a rant on Kyrie. Obviously hates that he's not, that he didn't take the vaccine. The other one Kirk brought up was the Whoopi Goldberg one from The View, which is a great point. I mean, maybe it doesn't sound great all the time, and maybe you go a little too far sometimes making fun of somebody in this situation, but it's the truth. It's you're an unhealthy person telling healthy people potentially what to do, as opposed to saying I'm an unhealthy person. If you're out there and you're an unhealthy person, you should try to get healthy so that you can, so you're better equipped if you got COVID or something like that, or especially if you don't want to get the vaccine, make sure you're fucking healthy or something like that. I don't know. So I got where he's going for there with his opinion on Whoopi Goldberg. So besides that, took some calls. Calls were, I don't know, I can't really remember anything totally memorable from the calls. So yeah, I guess they were good. I proved the case. I know it was stupid, but whatever. It's the sister-in-law read 44 books. I think that's within the margin of error, I guess. It wasn't 50, but it's within the margin of error. So, yes, definitely all fiction out of her. So, all right, we will, like I said, we will keep tabs on everything that kind of the fallout reaction to the Kmarko stuff. I understand he hasn't talked to anybody in the office in 15 months. I would assume that that's kind of an opportunity for some kind of reaction out of people just alone or out of people talking to him. I don't know. We'll see where it all falls out and go from there. So, all right, we'll be back Thursday, which is tomorrow, with Quantum Week Chris. Looking forward to that. I'm sure he'll bring one of his games, so that'll be good. And then, no real Friday show. So plan accordingly, and we'll go from there. All right, KMS Wrap Up. We'll talk to you tomorrow.